Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to selfdiscoverymedia.com and Self-Discovery Medium Show. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful repeat guest is Robert Lindsay Milne. We're going to be talking a lot today about something that I think we all need to know. The wake up and be awesome. Tap into yourself. How do we do that? He says miracles are only miracles until you know how to do them. And Robert knows how to tap into them, opening up our channels to receive what we need to know and how to make it happen. Robert is a renowned reader of tea leaves, but he used to read the Toronto, no, he's a Toronto native, and he used to read, what was the wonderful tea room that you used to work at?
Cozy tea room.
The cozy tea room up in Toronto. And he started that at a very, very young age and discovered that he had an exquisite gift of being able to see what is needed to do that, because he's a psychic intuitive and he's a counselor of his time. And his work is absolutely incredible. He's also started his own podcast now too, which where he's going to share all about it and what's going on there, because we want to know what kind of guests he has. But he has this gift, and it's just something that he didn't shy away from. He embraced. It's like so many people have this gift and they shy away from it because they're scared of what other people's opinions are going to be, or they feel freaked out, or it's the devil calling, or anything else like that. And from a young age, he knew he had this gift, what to do with it, how to share it. And this is what he's been doing now for all of his life, serving so many people with opening up those doors of that intuitive, beautiful knowledge that we need to know. So how do we become awesome and tap into our beautiful gifts, Robert? Welcome back and Happy New Year.
Well, thank you very much. That was really an interesting talk. I always get amazed when people talk about me like that. Sometimes I wonder, are you sure you're reading with the information for the right guy?
Well, hey, we've done a show before.
I know.
I'm tapping into what we did last time. I mean, you really are epitome of embracing your gift, and that's
you see. I don't see it that way at all. I don't think of it as a gift. Mm-hmm. I think of it as something that I had the option of developing, and it was for my survival. Mm. And I realized at a young age that I was seeing and sensing things that most people weren't. Mm-hmm. And I also at a young age realized that it would also be for my protection. And then the first time when I was 14, I ran away and lived downtown through the wintertime.
Not a good time to run away in the winter.
No, not certainly not in those days. There wasn't the climate change, and through November to April there was a lot of snow and a lot of cold, and I survived by my wits and intuitions. Then in spring, the police found me and took me home and I was back home. When I turned 15, I left home again, and I never lived with my family of origin again. But again, I was on the street, and I used again my psychic ability to protect me and those around me. So it isn't that it was a gift; it was the way I think. It wasn't that it was some lightning bolt. It was just what I do.
It's who you are.
That's right. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I started realizing that I had these awarenesses, but I wasn't able to fathom or even consider that other people wouldn't. Mm. And it's kind of like being sighted, and most people aren't.
I get what you're saying, because I was born that way as well.
Yeah,
And I couldn't get why other people couldn't see what I was seeing
absolutely.
or what I was feeling. Why can't you feel this or see this? And it's
Sure.
like I didn't get it. Why was I the only one feeling or seeing this way? And I didn't, there was no understanding that I was tapped in and they weren't, or they had other issues in their way. And consequently, I was the odd one, right? I was the little strange child.
Right.
I played with dead people. It's like,
Wow.
woo, loopity loop, right?
I didn't do that one.
And
Yeah.
very much a dimensional traveler here. And it was something until I think later on that the kind of the persecution towards it kind of started hitting me as I got to be an adult, right? But as you say, you chose to tap into your intuitiveness. You chose to go in for your survival out. And really that ultimately in that one statement is what it's all about, isn't it? Living from the inside out.
Well, I see it as a sense that we would have. So saying that I embraced it would be like saying I embrace hearing.
Because it was such a natural sense to you.
I didn't embrace it at all. I hear.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So embraced my talent. It was just there. Now later on in my life, I did embrace it and make it a commitment, a life commitment. But what I was doing was making a life commitment of what I already knew I had. Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after being at that team room for, from 15 and a half till about 21, after about that time, I really did start seeing the differences. But my main focus has always been just readings and not worrying about where it's coming from or how, as long as people are growing and evolving or doing well because of what I'm saying, I wasn't worried about where it was coming or from or how or why.
I mean, we're all capable of that, aren't we?
Absolutely.
But we've put these other kind of expectations in a way, or we're just not tuned in, to that.
Oh, sorry.
No, just go ahead.
So to say that we're all tuned in is probably not accurate.
No, but we're capable of.
The way I see it is, if you think of a bell-shaped curve, at one end of the curve, there is somebody that has absolutely zero awareness or intuition. And then you follow that bell-shaped curve, and then there's somebody at the other end that is absolutely 100% aware. Yeah. And then the rest of us fit somewhere in between on that.
Yeah.
So some people, there's the odd one, but it's being psychic is a basic instinct and gift that humans have. They're not a gift, a basic instinct that all mammals have. Sorry.
Right. And if you look at the farmers of the past, they would listen to the animals. They knew when the animals had changed. I was watching The Electric Life of Louis Bain, I think it is. He's the guy that kind of changed the entire perception over cats. In fact, he domesticated cats through his drawings. Wow. But he saw energy. When people were boxing, where he saw the energy coming out of cats, and he would talk constantly about the energy that we're projecting off. But I think today he might be in the autism spectrum, but back in the 1800s, he was just deranged.
Yep.
And but the way he was talking about reading people's energy and everybody looking at him like he's off his rocker is really, really kind of where we're at. And the intuitiveness is being able to actually understand that energy and tap into that energy and go with the flow of that energy, because we all give it off in some form of way. And, it's just being able to read it. Right.
Well, that leads us into something that uh, I was serious, but I playfully said when we were talking about what are we going to talk about, and I said, "Well, how about miracles? Miracles are only miracles until you know how to do it." Well, I was serious, but I wasn't. I was joking, but I. It's interesting that you just sort of brought that subject around energy.
Mm-hmm.
All a miracle is manipulating energy.
Mm-hmm.
And we all can do that. So a miracle is only a miracle until you know how to do it. And then when you know how to do it, it's something different.
You manifest it. You
It's
make
not
it happen.
but it's not a miracle.
Right.
Okay. Right.
I mean, we talk about, when somebody, a miracle, recovers from cancer or recovers from this and that. I live with an 88-year-old who had polio when she was young. And she had many operations, everything else. At the end of it, she ended up with a leg that was 2.5 inches shorter. And her father
That
would
can be a
go,
problem.
yeah. And for her, whether she had to wear the brace or not, she could walk. That's all that mattered
Right.
to her.
Right.
But her father was a devout believer, and he would go and pray every single day at this particular chapel in Quebec. And he said, and on the seventh day, you are going to walk like your mom and dad. And he would go in every day and put the brace on her leg for her. And he came in one day, he picked her up out of bed and just put her on the floor and said, walk. And not only did she walk, but her legs were of the same level.
Wow. Okay. So that's really amazing. Was the young girl in on it, or was it only the father manipulating the energy?
Only the father, because the daughter was, she was scared that when it didn't work, of how it was going to affect her dad.
But the girl knew what he was doing. No,
she knew what he was doing, but right. she thought, oh my God, when it doesn't work, he's going to be so heartbroken. She was only about 8 at this point.
Okay.
8 or 9, somewhere around there.
That's interesting. But I haven't done any of those.
But his complete belief,
right,
that it was going to be right. Now they also had lost.
Well, I agree with that concept.
Yes.
Okay. So the only reason you can't fly is because you don't believe you believe you cannot. That's the reason. And the only reason you can't walk through a wall is because you believe you can't do it. So if you now please don't mistake I want to believe as instead of I believe, because want to believe and I can walk through this wall gets your nose squashed. Right. And want to be able to fly, gets you a really hard landing from where you tried to take off from. Right. So you really have to, that's right. You have to go through the steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, it's unusual for that man who manipulated the energy, for him to do such a major league energy manipulation. He must have had some kind of experience. You don't get to go up to bat during a World Series game, bases are loaded, and the score is tied. They don't just let anybody say, come in and hit that ball. That would be a miracle, hitting the ball and getting a hit. So that's the realm of what he did if he's never done it before. That would be what it was. So he must have had some kind of experience, understanding, or something, or because that's like the gold medal round at the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. Well, she had a twin sister who died just before she got
polio. It's actually in the level of walking on water.
Yeah. And here she is. I mean, she went on to be a sprinter, a runner, a skier, and everything else.
Incredible.
And at 88 and a half, she can outrun me anytime.
Wow.
Right. So, yeah. But they lost the daughter, her twin sister, just before Audrey got polio. And then the mother developed some sort of disease out of shock out of it, where she couldn't leave her house. And in actual fact, her father was a spy. But to everyone else, he was just an accountant. So he was a very petite Montrealan who really just was that people would overlook.
What side was he on? He was our side, right?
Our side, yes.
Okay, good.
Our side, definitely.
All right, good.
No, definitely. But never talked about it to his
Of
wife
course.
and everyone else.
Well,
He was just an
yeah.
accountant.
Yep.
Accountant that seemed to have to travel a great deal. All right.
Oh,
And it was her uncle that told her that no, he was more than that, but he was a very secretive man. He kept a lot to himself. And I always believe that if you lose a twin or a sister or brother that's very, very close to you at a very early age, that energy is now with you.
well, okay, that's interesting. I'd never thought along those lines. That's interesting. So,
but obviously that is the ultimate miracle. And
it's certainly in advanced.
Yeah.
You'd be in the advanced class.
Right.
Right.
But, even when you're talking about cancer and things like that, people go, oh, it's a miracle that they recovered from it. I think they were channeling the right energy.
Right. I absolutely agree. So what I do with people that are interested in doing miracles, what we do is we start off doing little ones, little small ones, like parking spaces.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm really good at parking spaces because I believe that I'm going to get a parking space, but not only get a parking space that we've got this big shopping center here called Yorkdale. It's very high end. And the mall itself is greater than the parking supplies.
Right. Yes.
And at Christmas time, you can't get a parking space, and people get into fist fights and stuff like that.
Oh, somebody who was killed the other day was somebody who had parking rage, right? Yeah.
So I have often gone there during Christmas rush, and I always get a parking spot close to the main door. Okay, so not just a parking spot, way out in the boondocks, but right at the front door. And I'm 9.5 times out of 10 in that average, high, I almost always. And it's because I believe it's going to happen.
Right. Right.
And you can manipulate energy like that just simply by believing, by sending that.
Right.
So when you start you practice doing those little miracles. And as you get better and better at it, you then do bigger and bigger miracles. But when you start doing them, they're not miracles now.
No.
So the biggest one that I think I've done, there's been a lot, but when I was working at the tea room as a kid and just off the streets, I was also living at a flea bag hotel. It was called Larry's Hideaway at Carlton and Jarvis. And I worked there, I lived there and worked at the tea room. I left the tea room and continued to live at Larry's, but wasn't doing quite as well at the tea room. And I fell behind in my rent. At the same time, one of the older guys that worked on the front desk 4 nights a week, he died, and not at work though. And when I heard that, I went to the owner of the hotel and I said, could I take Whitey's shift, but instead of paying me, I'll take room and board.
Right.
And he gave me that job. So, and I think the work days were, I think it was like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I think that was the work day. So the rule at the hotel though, was that anytime there was a fight in the bar, all the males that were working that day, you had to go down and help.
Right.
And that was just the rule. And so I used to fantasize walking downstairs with the bar in a great big brawl. Everybody's into it. I used to fantasize about walking in, raising my hand, and commanding peace and love and harmony and stopping the fight. Well, you can get beat up trying to do something.
Yes.
So,
yes. They're not on the same frequency.
No. So that was my fantasy, but I never quite did. But I always thought about it. And what I started to do, though, was study energy.
Yes.
And I started watching how people react when they're in a conflict. And then I would start, this has gone over my lifetime. It's not like
Yes.
I started doing, that I did for a couple of weeks. I've done this my whole life. I would see people getting ready to have a conflict, and I would go stand near them just to feel the energy. And I would watch to see how the energy was rising. And, there's something that causes like two people in conflict. There's a change in the energy, and they either start beating each other up or it stops. And it's fascinating to watch. And over the years, I've watched things like that happen, and started interjecting with other energy. So just as they're about to have a conflict, distract them or change the energy, but again, stay away. So I've been studying this for a long, long time. And it's gotten, like some pretty heavy and intense times. So this one Saturday morning, I woke, and I have to tell you, the details here, because it's about the timing. It's and the right energy. This Saturday morning, I woke up. I just had to bake a coconut cream pie. I just had
Compelled to do so.
I woke up with that obsession. Now, before that time, I used to bake a lot, so it wasn't like unusual for me to bake. Okay, I hadn't been for a while, but it was a normal part of my life at another time. So I got up, and of course, I had to have a coconut. You don't get any of that canned stuff or the bag stuff, right? You don't do that. I had to have a coconut. So I started driving, and I thought it would be easy. And I went to one store, and they didn't have. I went to 8 different stores, an hour and a half. It took through the 8 stores to find no coconut. I was exasperated, and then all of a sudden I remembered that there was an Asian chain of grocery stores, and I was less than a kilometer away. I drove into that store and it was a strip mall. And as I drove up, I noticed that there was a group of young men, 15 to 20 of them in a group, and they were, I don't know, at my age, everybody looks like they're, 40-year-olds look like they're 12. But have you noticed that?
Yeah.
So anyway, they could have been teenagers. They could have been young men. There was a lot of them, and they were chanting, and they were getting revved up.
Right.
And I was watching them, and I'm thinking, what the hell are these kids doing? And so I just walked around the group, and then I noticed that they were facing towards the wall, and there was a dog that was tied to a bicycle rack. And these kids were chanting, revving themselves up, and they were directing that energy towards that dog. So the dog was there because their owner went into the grocery store, tied the dog up. Anyway, these kids had an objection to this dog. And I watched it for a little while, and I thought, this isn't right.
No, poor dog.
Oh, the dog was very afraid.
Yeah.
And I watched, and I relaxed. My first instinct was, hey, you little shits, cut that out, right? Yes. No, don't do that one.
Yeah, that's fueling.
And then, no, you get into big trouble.
Right.
So I just became detached, and I didn't have an opinion about what was going on. I just was detached. And I walked right in the middle of that group of kids. And I just stood there, and I was relaxed, had my hands down at my side, and I just relaxed and kind of looked around, and eventually I made eye contact with the leader of the group, and he said to me, "Is that your dog?" And I said, "No, but he's a friend of mine."
Mm-hmm.
And the energy just went pop like that, like a balloon. And it just was like a balloon bursting.
Right.
And the energy just zipped away. And I just turned and walked over to the dog. The dog was real happy to see me.
Yes.
And when I looked back, those guys were just all walking away. Now, if someone would have seen that and say, "Holy shit, there, look at that miracle." Nope, it isn't.
Yes. Yes.
It's balancing or manipulating energy. It's not a miracle.
I agree. And, I mean, really.
But it's still pretty good.
Yeah, oh God, yes. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'm one of those people,
Yeah.
In between people. You wouldn't hit a woman, would you? And then somebody pulls me out as the fist comes.
Right. That's right. If I would have had an opinion,
yes.
If I would have been angry, they would have turned.
Right. The old Yoda thing, these are not the droids you're looking for. Right. This is not the dog you're looking for. And the thing is, it wasn't about the dog, was it? It was about strutting their stuff. Intimidating for the intimidation's sake.
Absolutely.
So, angry people. I was telling this story last night, but
I never thought of that. Okay, thank you. I never saw that. I just once it was over, I never much thought about it other than the dog.
Well, I was in Washington, D.C. back in the 70s, and I'd come from South Africa. And of course, the apartheid was really revving up, to separate, and it was a big deal. And I didn't want my South African accent to come out. And I had taken a wrong direction to get back to the highway to go back to Maryland. And there were 3 guys there, and I just stopped and I thought, "Be British, Sarah." And I asked them, I said, "I'm so totally lost. Would you mind helping me?" And I said, "The car's on the wrong side of the road, da 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 da." And I played the ditzy blonde. And all of a sudden, there's a bunch of other guys there, and they've all got chains. Right. And it's, but I just kept completely calm, kept my ditzy blonde, and I appealed to their senses to help me.
Absolutely.
And they guided me to the right road. When I got home, I was living with an historian there. I was managing a home for her, board and lodging, right? I was looking after the animals and looking after her. And she had a cop friend there. And he said, "You were where? You did what?" He said, "The police don't go down there. It's gang owned. It's so violent." They did what? He couldn't believe it. I didn't go in with fear, and I didn't go in with confrontation. I set the mood in which the conversation was going to have. Right. And I have found that, except for my spouse, that it's worked pretty well in every arena I've had in my life, except if somebody's high or drunk, or so far gone that they just can't feel anything. But most of the time, you can diffuse that energy by just coming across it with a softer approach. You can shift it, right?
That's right. That's right. That's correct. In my case, it was being detached. Mm-hmm. And what I really learned, and it's because, like I jokingly say, I'm not that spiritual a guy. I lived on the streets. And you
survived the streets because you're a spiritual guy.
Well, that's right. So I would always think of, I was, more of an angry person and would lash out. Mm-hmm. I was always afraid that if I had that kind of power, I would use it on somebody. And it's not that I'm afraid of, I know I would have.
Right.
Hell, I still would. I'm capable of it.
Yep.
So, and I was always afraid of that. What I learned in that episode with those kids is that had I had that attitude, I would have been trampled. Right. And the only way I could have done it was to be detached.
Yes.
And that was a great relief.
But that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's like, let's take, January 6th last year, the hysteria. that built up to such destruction. And we know that, the hurricane of negative energy, can be very damning, very destructive. It's nowhere near creative whatsoever. But if you can catch that hurricane and shift that energy into something productive or defuse it, it's like blowing up the balloon. Sure. And then instead of popping it, of just letting it out a little bit and letting it deflate. So you're wanting to deflate a situation, and you can't be on the same energy as them when you're deflating it.
Well, absolutely.
Right.
And you need to be balanced and be careful that you don't add energy. You want to just, right. Okay.
Calmness.
Yeah. So the way that, how would you teach someone how to do that? Mm-hmm. And it is, so teaching people how to create that energy, you start off really slowly.
Yes.
Even with what Uri Geller did with the bending of the spoon, mm-hmm. it is very simply the manipulating of energy. Yeah. And if shown, it's not that difficult to do. It's a beginner's one, that's even though when he introduced it, it was mm-hmm. it was really profound. But starting off slowly and just getting used to doing something or that's basically starting off slowly, do little miracles, and then consciously expand that, manipulating the energy.
If you want it. But I think one of the things that is a big word that needs to be in there is patience. It's not going to just happen straight away. And take that breath. Center yourself. Take that breath. We're not going to do anything when we're mm-hmm. right.
That's right.
Is escalating, and it's
that's right.
Bring it down. Right. Don't expect things to change just like that. Be patient and project the right energy, but you've got to be the right energy. And if you're in anxiety or you're in fear or you're in anger, that's not the right energy.
Saturday night, I was out. There was a big windstorm, like a major league windstorm. And there was one of those pylons, of those orange and black ones, was rolling on the road. And it rolled up and it hit the front of my car, and it stuck. Mm-hmm. And I was slowed down. I got out of my car, and the wind was so strong, it blew my favorite hat off. No, it was my favorite hat, like my really favorite hat. And anyway, it blew it away really fast, and I had to move the pylon. And I lost my hat, and I was so pissed that I couldn't find it. And if I hadn't have been so angry, if I hadn't have been so irritated, I may very likely have been able to find it.
Right. Yeah. A lesson there, right?
But I wasn't in that state of mind to have balanced that energy or created the energy.
I think what people don't understand is, why do you have such an attachment to your hat? Well, it's got an energy of its own. And when it's on your head, it's a complementary energy, right?
Well,
so
it made me look really handsome.
There's that too.
That's the reason. No, seriously, it just worked with my face, right? And that's why it was my favorite hat. And I was wearing it in some of my, some of the photos from my website, and it was great. So that's why I was attached to it.
Mm-hmm. I love antiques. Mm-hmm. And some people just look at them as old things, and for me it's like I look at the historical vibration, the stories that are in there, and it's not the stories of this person did this or did that. It's kind of all the energy signatures that are in that antique, and they really do speak to me. It's the same as going into the forest. The leaves have a conversation with you. I remember going down a path once with my dog, and the leaves were rustling away like crazy. And I said, "Hey, stop talking all at once. I can't hear you." And they stopped. Every tree stopped, right? And then there was just a gentle thing. And it's every single thing on this earth has an energy signature.
It does.
We think that just because we're human, we're it. But our animal kingdom, the trees with the matrix and the connection that they have to each other, the wind itself, everything has a signature. And it's just a question of being able to open up those channels and tap in.
Yes, that's right. One of the things that I forgot what I was thinking about. I was listening to you speak, but trees actually communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And if one tree isn't feeling very good, or other trees send energy through their roots.
Yes. Yes. Judi Dench did a beautiful documentary of that, literally showing the fiber optics. They had the cameras on there where they showed the fiber optics of reaching out to one another. And I said, if we can view ourselves as a forest where, we're there for each other, even when a tree falls, growth comes from it. There is no waste. If we could look at ourselves as a forest and stand tall with each other and support each other from the very core, from the very root, we would be a stronger nation, a human nation.
I think that's true too. I met an old wise man years and years and years ago, Aboriginal, indigenous. I guess he would have been a medicine man or a shaman, and he was was in Western Canada. And he told me that his father and his grandfather, when they would go out to chop down trees, what they would do is that they would go to one tree and pretend they were going to chop that tree down. And while they were paying attention to that tree, all the other guys would run over to a tree and cut it down really fast so that the tree wouldn't get scared.
Right. Because we just look at it as lumber.
That's correct.
It's a living thing.
Absolutely.
And I think this is one of the things that I've got some wonderful shows on this week, and one of them is a wonderful intuitive that downloads what projections are going to be happening. And for 2022, it is the coming together, it is uniting, working together. But if we could actually understand that, this highfalutedness that we have as human beings, thinking that we are owed and we're the be all, the end all, if we could kind of get out of that way thinking and realize that not only are we residents here on this earth, we're guests, and so do not abuse the home, but the energy that we project out to each other is really having an effect on our planet. And she says the balance of the planet is in flux right now.
Absolutely.
And so we actually, if we want to have a better life and a more attuned life, more intuitive life, we really need to find that balance within ourselves and stop living the exterior life and start living the interior life. Because when we find that balance within ourselves, we then have that clarity of why we're here, what we're here to do, and what really is important in life, and understand it's not all about us, right? Me, myself, and I. And I think that kind of thinking is what gets us into trouble.
My focus, and I think you may have that instinct too. Most of us that do this kind of work have this instinct. So my first reaction in a situation is, what can I do, rather than what can I get?
Yes.
And it's different wiring.
Right.
So there's a different wiring that we have. So my instinct right away is, what can I do? And then I'll think about what I can get later, usually when everything's finished and done. But that's my instinct. And I also am in some ways very narrow-minded in how I do my work. I can't feed everybody in the world.
Right, exactly.
I can feed the person in front of me.
Exactly.
I can't change the world, but I can help the person in front of me survive the day.
But that's the domino effect from that.
Right.
That's how you feed everybody in the world, by everybody helping the other person in front of them.
So my focus is what's in front of me rather than what's way over there.
Right.
And so I don't know that much about world conspiracies and stuff. And I actually don't care because there's nothing I can do about it.
Right. Well, you are doing something about it. You're helping the person in front of you.
That's what I do the best.
And when you're helping the person in front of you, they tap into a more positive energy and they project that out to the people around them.
Yeah.
So, that beautiful ripple effect. And I think you hear this all the time. I'm only one person. What can I do? And,
I wasn't minimizing it. What I was saying is what I'm really good at is helping that person in front of me rather than the big picture. And I'm proud of it.
Yes.
It's not
making a difference. No,
absolutely.
No, but that's the point. If you can make the difference in one person's life, that person's elevation in their frequency, right, is going to affect everything they do and everything they project. So, people think, I can't do anything to, heal world hunger, world anger. Well, I can't do anything. Yeah, you can. You starts off with just yourself.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's correct.
So when you change your own vibration, you're already rippling out a different frequency. And so if you can help one person kind of understand their path, what they need to do to go on that journey, how they can step into the awesomeness or the flawsomeness, then you've empowered somebody to be what they're here to be. And now that ripple effect and that resonance now reaches out to other people around them. So just look at the person in front of you, right?
Yes, that's right. See the person in front of you. And then when seeing, acknowledge.
Exactly. Huge
one of my most amazing accomplishments. Or in the neighborhood that I used to live in, we have, maybe you have them out west, the superstores they're called.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So in the Toronto area, they have young men that take the buggies and put them in place, right? And at the store that I would go to, they had some young Asian men, and they appeared to have mental challenges, and they appeared to be on the autism spectrum. And there was one, and there were these two guys. They kind of looked alike, and one of them was vocal, but not very personal. But he was vocal. It was hard to understand what he was saying, but his energy was quite outward.
Right. The
other guy, his energy was inward, and this guy was like he was in a fog or in a world of his own. And I connected with the first guy, and he would always say something to me, and I would listen very carefully and then speak back. But the one that was inward, I decided that I believed at the time there was something in this kid. There was something going on inside. It wasn't coming out, but there was a person there.
Yeah.
And I spent 8 years trying to make a connection with this guy. And every week, and I knew these two guys worked on Friday night, and every Friday night I'd go there. And this guy would walk by people and he'd be mumbling something and just not paying attention to anything. And I just very slowly over time, let him see my presence. And one time I gave him one of my bags of coins that I usually give to people. And he took it and he looked at it, didn't say anything. And he just held it in his hand and then continued pushing the cart. Over time, and I would say hello or something, over time, he looked at me, not for very long, just like that, right?
Yeah.
And eventually One day I gave him another bag of coins, and he looked at me and said, "Take good care of yourself."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow.
Yeah.
The very next time I saw him, I looked at him and said, "Take good care of yourself." And he looked back startled, and then he said, "Take good care of yourself on this weekend."
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I touched him.
Right.
And over time, we would talk, and we got to the point where, he'd be coming down the escalator and I'd be going up, and we'd touch fists.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Acknowledgement. I see you. And he felt safe enough to be seen with you.
Right? It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced.
Yeah. We don't understand why so many people are trapped within themselves. Sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's autism. I've interviewed a lot of autistic people, and highly creative, and always say that we're so demanding that they come into our world and articulate with us. But how about we go into their world and learn how to communicate with them on their level? We will learn something. And it's when you do make that connection, it's ultimately, I don't care how rich, famous, popular, whatever you are, or self-important you are, everybody's looking for that connection to be seen, to be heard, to be of value. We want to know we count.
And not everyone deserves to be.
Exactly, but we don't always know how to go about it or articulate it.
Then let me share with your listeners and viewers how they can do it. Mm-hmm. And what I do. I talked about my bag of coins. I don't spend coins, and I do my best when I'm using cash. When I get change, and always ask for extra change, when I bring them home, I put the coins in a crystal dish on a money altar, and I thank the gods for the energy I'm about to receive. I take the coins out of the crystal dish, and I put them in a plastic bag. And it's, depending on how good business has been, anywhere from $20 to $40 per plastic bag. And I then, when I have several, I then go downtown and I look around for people that are begging, that are hungry. And I often go to the neighborhood that I was on when I was homeless. But I don't just give them money. I interact with them.
Right. Yes.
And I treat them with dignity.
Yes.
And I'm kind with them. So, and I play. So one time I was walking by this guy, he's sitting on the ground, and he's got a cup in front of him, a Timmy's cup. And as I was walking by, and I knew what it was for, as I was walking by and him sitting down, I just kind of looked at the cup and did this, and then walked backwards, backed up and looked at the cup. And then I looked at the guy and I said, "Excuse me, sir, is that your cup?" And the guy said, "Yeah," like as if I'm going to hassle him. And I said, "Well, what do you use it for?" And he grumbled and said, "To put money in." And I looked in it and I said, "You're not doing very well today." And he said, "No, I'm not doing very well today." And I reached in my pocket and I pulled out one of my bags of coins and I handed it to him and said, "Maybe this will make your day a bit better." Handed it to him and then just walked away laughing my ass off at the beautiful experience. There was another time. There was a guy, and I didn't mess around with him very much. He was sitting down, a kid, I guess, and he had a bag of coins, or a cup in front of him too, and his eyes were blank, and his eyes were somebody broken.
Totally checked out.
Yep. He was, and as I was walking by, I just looked at him for a moment, and I put my hand out with the bag, and he reached out and took it, and I saw a spark of light.
I know.
Just for a moment.
Yeah.
But it was there.
Somebody cares. Ultimately, we want to know somebody cares. Stop being a throwaway society and throw people away. Care. Don't judge them for why they're there.
So if you want to do something like that.
Yeah, what I do.
Just do gentle. I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to your listeners.
No. It's what I do is, I remember being in Toronto. I went there for 3 months. It was too damn cold. I came back here.
Well, it might have been the wrong season.
Yes, I did. I went in November.
Hey.
Yes, I know, but it was circumstances, the timing. I remember going.
It is in those days that after a brisk walk in the fall, with the leaves all changing color, and it's cool. It's going back home when the rooms are warm, and what follows after that,
right,
makes the walk in the
but
cold.
It was snowing on this one particular day, and this guy sitting on a cardboard thing outside with his cup and everything. And I went into Timmy's, I think, to get a hot chocolate, and then I bought a large hot chocolate for him and something to eat. And I went out and I gave it to him, and I said, "Look, have you got somewhere to go?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "I want you to go." And I gave him some money. I said, "Please, I don't want you sitting here in the snow. This is not good for you." And he had, I gave him something to eat and everything. And I said, "Please go home, come back another day. But today you need to go home and look after yourself." And he looked at me and said, "Thank you." It was like he was needing that permission to go home, and like, I haven't made enough money, whatever, but I decided to buy food. I do give money, but I also like give food if I can. And sometimes it's just, I remember there was a beautiful thing of a guy, he was videoing people on the street, and he gave a guy some money, and the guy said, "Thank you very much." But he said, "Would you go buy us some food and come and eat it with me?" Wow. And the guy, he left the camera there, and he sat down and ate a meal with this guy. And he said, "Yes, wow, I'm hungry, but I'm also hungry for company."
That's impressive.
Yeah. But I mean, this is numerous shows on the homeless and the lonely and the caring. I mean, this is, kind of something I'm always reiterating with people. The sharing of energies. You want to see a miracle? Then ignite it in other people by caring. Share your energy.
That's right.
And when you share your energy and you open up that spark of life where you see me, you hear me, and this is not just for the people that are homeless around the street. This could be somebody in your family that feels overlooked, friends that feel they're in the background, that nobody's bringing them to the foreground because they're not gregarious. I myself have gone through my life kind of feeling very, very lonely in a crowd because I was so different. And so people didn't quite see me, they saw an expectation of me. And I think it's the greatest gift you can do for someone is share your energy and say, "I see you, I care. I want to know." If you want to know how to make miracles, it's step up and open up that beautiful channel for other people to let them know you care.
Right. That, because we need that acknowledgement.
Yes.
It's not a question of want. It's a need.
Connection.
Yep.
Connection.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We need it.
Yeah.
That's the species that we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're not
mammals,
meant to be alone. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're meant to work in groups.
Yes, we are. You do a lot of readings for people. I know you've only gone down to 400 a year.
Yeah, I'm really slowing down,
And I kind of stopped doing readings myself because the podcasts and things are taking up so much time now. And, it's just a different chapter in my life. But, you've always had that ability to do that. You know how to tap into it. But it's like opening up a channel to read their energy, isn't it? To be able to see what it is they need to know. And, I remember people saying, "Tell me about this and tell me about that." And I said, "I can only tell you what you're needing to know right now." Right?
Okay. So when I do a reading, I'm conscious. I ask people to not interrupt me. The readings I do are more like a monologue than a dialogue. I very seldom ask questions. I start every reading, how old are you? What month is your next birthday? The reason I ask those two questions is that when I'm doing readings for people, often see their life from the conception to their completion. And I'm going forward and backward in time 75, 80 years, 3 or 4 times in every reading.
Right.
And sometimes I forget where I am in time. And so I ask them, or I also forget. So I need to know how old they are so that I can see where they are in time.
Right.
I often give the date, even in the middle of doing readings, because it's my way of telling me where I started from.
Right.
And because I do go forward and backwards. And some of the things that I do when I'm doing a reading is, I thought everybody could do it. Actually, I didn't. I just thought I did it, but I never even thought about how I do it. What I often do when someone's in front of me and they're in a crisis, what I do is let's say they're 35 or 8 or something. I look into the future to when they're 80. And then through the eyes of them at 80, I look back in time and I describe to them today what they think about the way they solved the problem they're in now, that solved the problem, what they think about it when they're 80. And I didn't realize that was an advanced technique. I just did it, right?
No. That's that definitely is very different.
And it's amazing to see how people become secure and feel safe.
Yes.
In doing it that way, because I'm telling them, I'm telling them 2 things in that one part of their reading. One is you're going to get through it, and 2, you're going to be at least 80.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So you know that whatever crisis in front of you right now, you will survive.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And when that's happening, then they relax, and then they can open their mind.
Right.
So that's one of the ways that I do readings. Now, I very, very seldom, like almost never, go far back in past lives, or I on occasion would do future lives, but that's not what I really am interested in. I'm really more interested in right now. So that's one of the things that I do.
And of course, there's none of Robert in there. It's all about what's coming through you, right? It's you understanding what's coming through you, and you're articulating what you're seeing.
Oh, well, I might have a wrestling match with you over that one. I believe that I have a talent, and I'm in control of that talent, and there's not somebody telling me what's coming, and it's me and my awareness. I believe that now. I'm not in any way challenging you in what you believe. I think it's a discipline. I think it's because I've worked so hard and spent so much time in honing my skill. And one of the things that, or a couple of the things that people like you and I have generally experienced, the ones that are good, is that we've had extreme lives. Right?
Yes.
And you see, because in order for us, whether you channel, as you say that you do, or whether it comes through me, I have to have, and you have to have had something similar, a similar kind of experience.
Right. That's the reason why we go through those experiences, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Now, if you didn't have that experience to compare, then you wouldn't be able to give the information.
Yeah.
Or even
have a connection to it or understand it.
Absolutely.
Right? Yes. I agree.
So no matter who's speaking through you, whether it's you, your guides, or your whatever, it's in they're using your head, your knowledge, your body.
Yes.
Okay. Well, well, it's my head, my knowledge, my body, and I'm using it. That's kind of like where I'm at.
Yeah, I call that kind of the knowingness approach. Is that those instincts, your gut. How do you know why? Why do you know? I just know. And I always say it resonates with the heart in truth, and it ignites the spirit interaction, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. So kind of I'm more of a knowingness coach. Is that what I need to know in that moment will open up, and I will share with you what you need to know. But because I'm also, a coach or a counselor, really more spiritual counselor, is I understand what it is you need to know, because the instinctual or the intuitive or the divine, whatever you wish to call it, knows how to extract the information from the mind that is relevant to what you need to hear.
Right. So taking that step, now I would have no problem saying to somebody, or when doing my legitimate tuning in, being psychic, I would have no problem saying that I sense spirit and giving them the information. And because I believe, speak to the person in the language they understand.
Yeah.
So if they have to hear it as spirit, and that's what they need from me at that time, if the information that I have for them at that time, if that's the only way they're going to get it, then I'm going to use that.
Right.
Okay. So, but I wouldn't normally. It's about I sense, I feel, it appears as if.
Yeah.
And I've just always been like that.
Yeah, I understand. You're going to use the dialogue that the people are going to be receptive to hearing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, if I'm with a librarian, I'm going to be speaking very politely, and I'm certainly not going to be swearing and stuff like that. And if I'm with a street kid, I'm gonna be swearing.
Right.
And because I speak to the language and how they understand. Maharishi said that. They're not my words.
Right. Yeah. It's even when I was coaching, is it's okay to call people out on that. Out in their shit, and it's part of, the kind of the reading or the coaching that you're doing, is that it's not all about kumbaya or, happy ever after or this or that. Sometimes it's that you are your own blockage right now. And, you've got to chisel away with and change that attitude if you want this to happen. So, for me, it always ended up being more of the counseling.
Right. I do a lot of life coaching like that. And I am a behavioralist in my way of thinking. I believe that you understand why you're behaving in a certain way, then you'll be able to change your behavior.
Right.
And I believe that that we have a behavior so that we can fulfill our needs, and needs must be fulfilled or we die. If you're fulfilling your needs in an ineffective way, you'll be living a needy life.
Yes.
What I get people to do is to get in touch with and identify what it is that they truly need, and show them how to fulfill that need. And that's how. So, and I often use my psychic ability and awareness when I'm doing that life coaching.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, because it's in tuning what they need to know. Right.
Absolutely. That's correct.
And, a lot of it is it's really heart center, isn't it? It's when your heart feels it, then you know it to be true.
That's correct. That's right.
And, I think so many people are so wounded right now. They're too scared to be in their heart. But the only way to heal yourself is to step into your heart. And if you have been wounded, if there has been a trauma, if you are going through something, you can't avoid it. You have to be willing to go through it. But you can accept the guidance of other people who are going to help you through it. But you still got to be willing to take the journey.
I'm pretty certain that we're not the worst traumatized society, even though there's a lot of people that have been injured and traumatized. I think that it's because it's out in the open. I think it's always been like this. Mm-hmm. We're just seeing it.
We're acknowledging it now. Yeah.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And science is seeing it.
Yes.
It's like until whatever time in life, incest never occurred, but it did.
Yes.
Okay. Sexual abuse didn't happen, but it did.
Oh yeah.
But so in the 1940s or 50s, even, it didn't happen, right, but it did.
Yes.
So it was equally atrocious back then as it is now. We just know more about it.
And in that knowing more about it, we're more empowered to do something about it.
You're a step ahead of me. And I was saying, and because we know it, then we can change it.
Yes. Well, it's rather like, your challenge, young man. Had you kind of come at him too strong, had you been more demanding or anything like this, he would have retreated further and further.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's like when you take a traumatized animal, it is kind of, meet them face to face with warmth and love. Like, I'm not intimidating, it's let them get to know your vibe, let them feel you, that you're not out to get them. And then more and more that trust builds up, and the more and more they then open up to receive. But this, you've got to do this and you've got to do that, snap out of it, same with like with depression or anything like that, snap out of it. It's the more we demand of people, it means that we're not understanding where they're at, and that gentleness, sometimes firmness, but gentleness and caringness is going to open up a great deal more than the demanding of a change.
Almost always.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was one time I was at the corner of Wesleyan Church. Now that's called the Gay Village. When I was homeless, that wasn't what it was. It was just a poor part of town. I often go back there and give money out in that area. And there's a hot dog stand right at the corner of Wesleyan Church, and the same family owns it that owned it back in the days when I was homeless.
A true community, right? Standing, yeah.
And so every time I go there, I always I always get a hot dog. Mm-hmm. And this one night, I was getting a hot dog, and I was leaning up against the wall, waiting for my hot dog to cook. And I looked down the street and I saw this kid walking up to me. And he was the dirtiest looking kid I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, this kid was really dirty. He was young, maybe in his 20s, but he was just, he looked like he could have been a guy, a chimney sweep.
Right.
It was like that. Anyway, I was doing my best also to ignore him or not let him see me, that I was acknowledging him. Anyway, of course, he comes up to me and he says, excuse me, sir, do you have a spare dollar? And I said, what do you want the dollar for? And he said, do you really want me to tell you? And I said, of course I want you to tell me. And I said, what do you want the dollar for? And he said, are you sure? And I said, well, if you want to get the dollar, you have to tell me what you're going to use it for, and I will know the truth. And he said, it's to buy drugs. And I said, for $1?
Where are you shopping?
That's right. Who's your dealer? You know? And I said, like, what are you going to get for $1? And he said, oh, well, some grass. And I said, for $1? And he said, well, that would be a start. And I said, oh, okay. And I reached in and pulled out one of my bags and I handed the bag to him. And he took it and he looked at it and he looked up at me and he said, are you looking for a date?
Yes.
And I said, no, I'm cool, man. I'm not looking for a date. And then he said, why did you give this to me? And I said, because you're worth it. Mm-hmm. And he got all teary-eyed and he went to hug me, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, no, it's okay. Like I got this touch thing issue, but thank you. And he says, well, thank you very much. And he starts to walk away. And then I said, hey, wait a minute. Come here. I got something else. And as he comes up to me, I reached in my pocket, pulled out a joint and said, here, you can have this too.
He probably thought, it's Christmas.
That's right.
And the thing
touched my heart.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, we don't know why he's an addict, right? We don't know why he's an addict. And no, we don't want to feed it. But at the same time, unless you're there with a magic wand that you can cure all the ills of why he's an addict, it's just letting them know that you care enough about them and the journey they're on. I give that amount because what it does is it gives them the rest of the day or night off. Yes. Yes. Okay. That's what I do. And when they get that time off, they can buy drugs, they can buy alcohol, they can buy food, right. They can pay their rent, they can do something with it. Okay. Now, my belief is if they use it for drugs, great. Now they're not robbing somebody. Right. If they do it for food, they're going to get stronger. Yes. Okay. It's not for me to tell them what to do with what I give them. It's for me, I'm giving them that time. Yeah. Yeah. I had a wonderful guy on who buys homeless signs. So he's been doing it now since the early 90s. It's since then, become a documentary and everything else. And he said, I'm not just going to give them money. I'm going to buy their sign and listen to their story. Right. And in doing that, it's e-commerce. It's a negotiation here. And listening to their story is saying to them, I don't look at you as a disposable person. Sure. I'm truly interested. Right. And we, especially right now with the pandemic still on, there's so many more homeless. So here in Victoria, we have a huge homeless population. Well, they just roll out from the center of this country, Yes. They just roll out to the coast. Yes, exactly. And, some of them, having mental issues. Some of them are just feeling lost. Some of them are feeling abandoned, and some of them don't trust. Right. Society in its own and prefer living on the streets amongst their own. And it's like, don't come at them with your prejudgment of what should be. Come at them with how can we help them make different choices for themselves. Well, my focus is I want to do this act for that person in that moment. Yeah. And that's what I'm looking for. And whatever they do with that moment, have a good time. And I don't usually look for or expect to have another connection. Right. I just touch them in the moment and touch me, and then I go on, and I don't much think about where they go after that. No. Yeah, and that's all we can do is those momentary things, right? Because there's so many, because you just, I've done more than 100,000 psychic connections. I couldn't tell you who was the first. Exactly. Exactly. Or now, but that's actually the point, is that you're very much in the now when you're with your clients. Right. Right. And that's, I don't know about you, but it's the same when I'm writing or if I'm doing my own show or doing something else. Sure. I don't remember what I've said. I'm in the now. Right. I'm doing what needs to be said in the now. I've just opened up and it's poured right out. And I've gone back and read an article and go, oh, this is interesting, to realize I wrote it.
Yes, yes. When I look at the podcasts that I do, and I get really surprised at who I'm looking at when I'm watching me talk or do the interview. It's always a surprise.
Yes. Yeah. I don't, you know, it's kind of a new game for you. I've been doing it 9.5 years, and it's, what I have, you've got some people what I call the grandstanders, they're there to
Right.
their thing. And it's hard to kind of have that conversation with them because they're not in a conversational mode. They're in a statement mode. But there's also those people that feel so comfortable that they get into their vulnerability, and what they share, that is just so raw and so beautiful. But what it's done is open up and given permission to other people that don't be ashamed, don't hide behind it, don't judge others because of it. And it's that, I think, one of the greatest gifts that you can share is your vulnerability, because it does give permission to other people to step into their own without shame, blame, or anything else.
What are you feeling right now?
What am I feeling right now? Well, I'm very much in
You're looking
zone.
emotional. Yeah.
Well, I that is actually something, I don't know if you read here, but in British Columbia, we had massive amount of landslides and floods. My daughter lost a friend in the landslide. They still haven't found his body. Stacks of cattle gone, agricultural land gone. We lost our main artery to back east. And then, of course, you got the Kentucky one. And I have to say that my senses lately have been very high in all of the anguish that's out there. And it's been a little challenge to actually kind of put those boundaries up and not be affected by it. So it's kind of been an emotional time for me.
How long has it been going on?
A good month.
Would you be offended if I made a suggestion?
No, please.
Okay. What you might want to consider is in a time when you're comfortable alone, visualize inside in your solar plexus a speck of dazzling pure white light. It's just so dazzling and bright you can't even look at it. Just a little wee speck. Every time you inhale, the light gets bigger, and every time you exhale, it gets purer. And over a short amount of time, inhaling, the light getting bigger, and exhaling, the light getting purer, eventually it fills your entire body cavity. And you continue to do that. Inhale, it gets bigger. Exhale, it gets purer, until eventually what happens is the ball of light comes out of you. And eventually, in inhaling and exhaling, you're completely encapsulated in that ball of dazzling pure white light. And if you want to continue it, it can encapsulate you and the chair you're sitting in. It can do the room or your entire home. So when you're in that vulnerable state, very quickly visualize that. Now, what it does is it cleanses out any of the negative energy from the inside out.
Right.
And cleans all your aura and all that negative energy, and it puts a circle of protection around you that's impregnable.
Which is something I need, because otherwise, it can be overwhelming. It really can be overwhelming.
I understand.
Yeah. And I do have a tendency to take on.
Yeah, well, it's part of the job.
Yes, it's those boundaries again, isn't it? It's like, and they've just penetrated lately. So yeah, thank you for that. I will most certainly be doing that.
You don't have to do that for hours. You can, you can put that ball around you, inhale, exhale, and do it in a minute.
Right. Exactly. Right? Once that spark starts going there, it'll kind of take almost the life of its own, right? It's igniting it.
And once you just get used to it, you can just visualize it.
Right. good advice for anyone out there.
As just one sidebar. Now, if there's ever a time, say you're on the bus or driving or whatever in a crowd, and you don't have time to sit in a relaxed place, immediately visualize yourself encapsulated within the white light from what you remember. And that will protect you until you can get to a spot and go through that other way. You can do it for 5 seconds or you can do it for 5 hours.
Right. Exactly. There's an awful lot of empaths out there right now that are feeling, so that's wonderful advice to all of us, because I know that an awful lot of people are feeling really ultra sensitive at the present moment. So thank you for that tip. And it's funny because what I do when I'm putting protection over anyone, it's always the white light, the encompassing them in the white light, right? So yeah.
So when it comes from inside, it means that you are all part of that white light.
Yeah.
It's very protective, very beautiful.
And something I'd forgotten and something I needed to be reminded of, and something I'm definitely going to do because it's not productive to go down the other rabbit hole, because I can't serve anybody in that. And I think that's actually a lesson for anybody out there that's, been inundated with the crises and the storms and the turmoil that's going on out there, is it can get too much and it can get too heavy. And it's like going back to what we were saying, help the person in front of you. And first of all, help yourself, because you can't help anyone else if you're feeling weighed down.
And there comes a time where, and we will all be in this position at some time or another, when we're absolutely burned out.
Yes.
And we can't help the person in front of us.
Yeah. And that's okay too. It means it's time for you.
That's right. That's right. And there will be times where however needy that other person is, we're needier.
That was also a very interesting lesson when I was down at that particular crossroads in my life. And I just said to people, I'm sorry, I cannot be there to help you anymore.
Absolutely.
I'm having to help myself. And it was interesting to see the people that left the ship, so to speak, and those that stepped up. Yes. Right. So,
that's right.
You find out really who the true friends are. But you have to, the old oxygenate yourself. If you're gasping for breath, you can't help anyone else. Take the time out for you.
What you said about those that, when you say I need, and those that disappear and those that will stay, Shakespeare says, the friends thou hast in their adoption tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel.
I've got very few close friends and a lot of wonderful extended friends, but I rather have those true close friends, and each one of them, and they're not all the same, right? So each one of them are going to have a different part of Sarah, and in that I know I can trust, right? I can be myself, and they've got my interests at heart, and vice versa. And I think that it's not about how many likes or how many followers or how many this or that or how many people adore you. It's about those people that are in a lot of ways your little earthly guardian angels.
It's not how many people love us.
Yeah.
It's how we love ourselves.
And that love projects out.
Absolutely.
Right. And it invites love with everyone else. It ignites that love in other people. Yeah.
So one of the things that I've seen a pattern of, and I often describe it to people, and when I start talking about it publicly, I can't use it in my readings anymore. But here's what it is. Often people, empaths and sensitive people, we get involved in relationships, love relationships, and we love and adore the person that we are involved with, and we give so much to them. If we're honest with ourselves, we'll then acknowledge that the way we look after, pamper, nurture, give love to that person is the exact same way we want to be loved.
Yes.
However, what we also do is take the way we want to be loved and give it to others. But the ones we give it to, they love us back the way we love ourselves.
Very true.
And if you want to be different, if you start treating yourself the way you want to be loved, rather than just accepting being loved the way you treat yourself. Mm-hmm. So when you start acknowledging, because you already know how you want to be loved,
right?
You already know, and when you do that, in time, you will draw to those people mm-hmm. who will love you the way you love yourself.
Right. Exactly.
And when you do that, love is not finding the right person. Mm-hmm. Love is being the right person.
Right. And then attracting the right person to your light. Right. So be the light you seek.
And recognizing when that person isn't what we seek, to say stop.
Exactly. Knowing it, for me, it's when the core disagrees, I listen. I don't need to know why. Right. Don't explain. No, the core says no. That's it. Yep. That's all I need to know. When the core says yes, explore, right. I'll explore. With, and not with dictation, but with or anticipation, but more with exploration of right. What does this mean? And be open to receive, because that's something we need to be. We have come to the end of our time, my darling. I could talk to you for hours, and I'm going to be on your podcast soon, which I'm really delighted about.
I'm excited.
Can you tell people how they get hold of you, and also about when your podcasts are and how people listen to those?
So you can, my podcast is called My Side of the Crystal Ball, and you can find it on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere else where you can find your podcast. Me personally, my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com, and you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. So, and all of those. So that's how you can find me. I still do some readings. They're pretty good.
Yes.
They're pretty good.
Most certainly. And people have got to understand, it's not fortune telling. It's just showing you, I always say it's kind of your map reading. You're letting know people how they feel and where it can lead them, and what paths are laying in front of them. They've still got to walk them. They've still got to travel them. You're just kind of, giving them some ideas of where to walk to.
when I'm doing a reading for somebody, I as I said, I often see their life from conception to completion, and I see patterns and where they're going, and I'll tell them, and they can go in that path if they want, but they could also change it too.
Right, exactly. Everything is free will, right?
Absolutely.
So basically, you're just a guider. It's up to them what they do with it. But, having that guidance, like, am I on the right track? Have I taken a detour? Where should I be? Because, things aren't in sync. And when we want to be back in sync. And when we are, then we know this is the path we're meant to travel. And so sometimes we just need that guidance to put us back on the right track.
So true.
Wonderful. It's always a delight. And I know you're going to be back again.
I hope so.
Your site is your name, Robert Lindsy
Milne, Milne.
Right. So it's Robert and the Lindsy, LINDSY, and then MILNE.com.
Yes.
And of course, everything will be up there. And please go and listen to his podcast because he's got some really cool people up there, and he has a very unique way of doing it. And, it's reach out to him because there's a lot to be learned, and a lot to be learned about oneself through listening to all of these. So they're always wonderful, Robert. I look forward to seeing you again here with us.
I loved it too. Thank you.
And I look forward to being on your show. So I'm
That'll be great.
intrigued. Will
Yes.
you being in the conductor's seat? So
Yes.
that'll be fun.
It's interesting difference.
Yeah. So I think ultimately when, what we're leaving people with here today is life is about connection. It is about community. It is about compassion. And that compassion, that love from you within you is what can project out and be an invitation to other people. So it's kind of simply care about you, care about those around us, and be invitational. Again, not dictational, invitational through your own presence and your beautiful essence. So until next time, folks, bye for now.